So now I'll be covering decal baking. So it's pretty simple. You can just add any object or use something like decal machine, like something like this, put it on your surface. You can make your own, of course, if you don't have this decal machine add-on. Doesn't really matter. Let's add some kind of material on here. And it supports full PBR as well. So if you want normal maps, you can do that. And you can bake mesh decals as well. So if you want some kind of like really detailed thing, actually I have a better thing to show you. If you have kit bash to assets, like let's take this bolt. You can bake this onto your object. Now, if you can't remove the bottom of this, you would have to flip it like that, because the rays, they come from the surface of your object towards this. So you would have to either remove the bottom, like so, or just flip it. And you want it to be as close to the surface as possible. Sometimes it's really hard when you have like a plane. And in this case, you use the decal tools, which is enabled from the settings. So the decal tools allows you to select an active object, and any selected objects will be shrink wrapped in a nice way, like that. And this will result in just way better. And use shade smooth when you can. It's better. And that's pretty much it. We can add a few more screws if we want to, like that. And as long as they're all in the same decal collection, like that, it will bake all of them. And you can use fast mode, but it might cause some artifacting, so you might have to disable that. And I guess the only thing you should check is that you have the decals only disabled, because you want them to be combined into a single texture. Sometimes you don't want that if you do compositing, but in this case, I do want to combine. So let's just bake. Oh, and one more thing. You need to use the cage visualizer to make sure that your decals are within the max ray distance. So see, like this wouldn't be enough, but this would be enough. You don't want to go too crazy, because if the max ray distance is too high, it will start to project these decals onto stuff we don't want it to affect. So you have to use this visualizer to get as close as you can. Let's check our UV just to make sure it's still good, and then we bake. And then we finalize, and we will go here, and we can see that something went wrong, and I'll show you why that happened. So let's close this. Let's open up our UV editor, and let's look at the maps. So few of the screws have, the normals are missing, for example, and they have this like weird thing. So this is usually caused by the max ray distance is still not enough. So when we move the objects, we can see that this is actually higher than the others. So the max ray distance, yeah, it's because it was too low there. So now it's inside of the mesh. Now the normal thing is actually caused by another property you have to apply. So if you go to your material, there is this thing called use normal data transfer. And by default, this is enabled because some meshes, like these cards, they do not have normals. You don't want every normal to be transferred from the mesh details itself. Like you just want the texture normals, but not the mesh normals, if you understand. But if we disable this, it will use the mesh normals. So now if we bake again, we'll have it fixed. Or I think I put it on the wrong, yeah, you need to use the material which actually is applied to your mesh objects. So all of them use the same material, so I don't have to do it multiple times. And then we finalize, and we can see that indeed we have way better results. Now let's look at these normals a bit closer. So the base color looks fine. The normals are, as you can see, better. And everything else seems to be good as well. Metallic is good. So how can we increase the quality? Because it's very low quality currently. Well, we could increase the texture resolution, but sometimes that's not really usable. So we just have to focus on the maps that need post-processing. So I think the normal map does need some anti-aliasing here. So we will add anti-aliasing to the normal map. And once your baking is done, you can do finalize again, and we'll see that it's a bit better. So we can go even further by adding, we can add the denoising as well. So we have two post-process effects at the same time. Let's try again. And it's blurry now, but that didn't make it better. Or for some situations, this might be better. But for me, I don't like it. So this means that it's not enough. So you have to go to the mesh itself. Let's make these all the same mesh first. Then you want to do Alt-Control-L and do link object data. Now this means that if we modify one of them, all of them will be modified. So we want to fix this. And we do this by making the effect more pronounced. So we move these faces, or actually I think we could do it like this. We move them here, and then we use the normal to move them. Pretty hard, actually. I think we have to do it like this. Yeah, that works. So you want to make the edge more pronounced. And we can see some artifacting here, so you should definitely clear any normal data and do merge by distance. Reset vectors. Still is kind of... Oh, there's some... Yeah, the mesh itself is bad. So, merge by distance. And then reset vectors. So you need a clean mesh to make this work. So now let's try again. And there we go. Let's check this. And that's better. And for this resolution, it's fine. Now I'll show you the 2K, but this should be your last resort because increasing your normal resolution is very expensive. And with 2K, we can see that, yes, that's good enough. So it's your last resort. If nothing works, just increase the normals, but just know that it's based on the mesh quality as well. And now we'll move on to the high to low baking with decals. It's pretty much the same thing, but now instead of having a low object, we'll have the high object instead. And this is an interesting thing. If you have complicated materials, you should always be in cycles. Because EV shader compilation is super slow. So let's start with high to low baking with decals. And in this case, it's pretty straightforward. You just set your high objects, which you can see in your object relationship. And you must ensure that these objects are on the high object. Like you might have a situation like this, where they're on the low object, and the baker won't allow you to do that. It's invalid. So you just click this operator and it will fix all the the parenting issues. And just make sure the cage is... all the decals have to be inside the green area, and the purple area is actually the low object, so it has to be above the high object. So we have this kind of like onion kind of situation, but you just need a bit of extrusion on the... some meshes might require more. Like, let's say our mesh is a bit bigger, like, or it has some kind of deformation, like that. Well, then we just need to increase our extrusion, like, a lot. But this is bad, like, you should never have that much. In this case, it's the same mesh, so it just needs to be slightly above it. And that's pretty much it. Let's check the UVs, they're looking good. No overlap, very nice. Okay, once it's finished, you just do finalize, and let's move this object to the right. And as we can see, we have all of our decals here. One note is that if your material uses... let's see, if your material uses the texture coordinates, you can only use the object and the UV. You can use the generated, but it will result in something different. Because when you... I'll show you. When you use the generated and you combine these, it will change. The add-on only can handle basically these two. You should really only use these two. This will work, but I've never used the normal one, or the camera ones don't really work. So just stick to UV and object, and you will be fine. And if you have something like this where it's not connected, this is generated. So you should add a texture coordinate and just do like that. Like that's the wrong node. This is the real one. So just do this and you'll be fine. Oh, our decal is bleeding a bit. That usually means that the max ray distance... no, it's actually correct. It's slightly blending in with that. Yeah. Okay. Well, you shouldn't have this kind of situation in the first place, but that's basically it for all the decal baking. So a common issue with baking stacked decals is that they will not correctly blend with each other. This is because the blending uses the mesh boundaries. So the baker actually sees this instead of this. So to fix this issue, you have to go into the stencil tools. You have to select the image you have with the mask and the correct channel. In this case, it's red. Then just select all of your objects that are decals and do stencilize. Now this will make them as they are from the alpha channel. Basically stencils. And now if you bake this, you'll get way better results. Now if we finalize, we can see that indeed it is very nice. Now there is one thing you should know. The order of the decals is based on their distance from your low object, and it's in reverse order. So the closest mesh will be on top, and the furthest one will be at the back. And this is how we can see this.